Good night. Yes, good night. Welcome to your favorite online radio program, www.SxMTalk.com. Of course, I'm your host, Christopher Emmanuel, and trust me, we have a very interesting program for you tonight. This is one for the record books. I'm telling you, call a friend, call someone, and tell them, log on now to www.SxMTalk.com because we're going to be talking the truth about Emilio Wilson Estate. And that's what we have been doing now for these last couple of days. We have really dug our feet inside the environmental aspect of St. Martin. And I have a very good friend here with me. We pelt information off of each other, and I think that he's one of the most interesting individuals to talk to dialogue with, and the wealth and the depth of information when it comes to environment on St. Martin is next to none. Of course, good night to everyone. And let me welcome, without further ado, the Vice President, I believe, of St. Martin Pride Foundation. He can correct me on that. But I have here with me Mr. Ruben Thompson. Mr. Thompson, good night.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, viewers, listeners. It's good to be here with you. We spoke about me coming here for a while now.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I couldn't make it before, but it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Yeah.
And I look forward to talking about wide range of environmental issues and touching on the different topics that definitely need the attention of the people.
Well, like I said, I'm smiling from cheek to cheek because I'm really happy to have you here on the program. And like I said, for this past week, we really have been touching, how should I put it, whether I want to say grassroots or whether I want to say a tree, a rock, but the soul of St. Martin we have been touching now for the past week. I had on the program the Garveyite, the community activist, Bakari, and we was talking about the little track in between Prince William Alexander School, how it grew up and the bushes was covering, and the guys did an awesome job. And then he himself went down and took some pictures because of the discussion you and I had. He went down and he took some pictures and some film of what is happening down Simpson Bay with the causeway. And yesterday we also ran that program that is getting a lot of reviews and stuff like that. And I said to myself, and I told my engineer, I said, we got to get Ruben here, seeing what is going on with Emilio Wilson Estate, because I believe you're one of the individuals that has the most information, and we're going to get an objective, the truth about it. Because if it's one thing you just always say, this is you're on no side when it comes to the environment, you know. So I'm basically going to ask the questions, but not much, because I am lost myself. So I really want to know about Emilio Wilson Estate. So Ruben, you can take it from the top and just start to speak. I might interrupt and just throw a question here and there, but let us get in depth about Emilio Wilson, and we're going to talk about some more environmental states.
Okay, well, I'll give a bit of a history about the movement to protect the Emilio Wilson Estate. Actually, the movement to protect the Emilio Wilson Estate is something that started years ago, before I even came back home. I came back home in 2003, 2004, and the movement to protect the Emilio Wilson Estate is something that is at least 20, 25 years old.
Wow.
Emilio Wilson purchased the property, Emilio Wilson Estate, in 1954 from the Van Romont Rodenhuis family. And he kept it as it was throughout his entire life. As you know, he lived in a very traditional manner, and he didn't want all sorts of, in his own words, he didn't want his property to be all jibbled up. People always tried to get Emilio Wilson to have it formally protected. Other people wanted to buy it from him to develop it, but he decided to keep it as it is for his entire life. And he sort of, with doing that, and in the way that he lived, he showed us the importance of preserving our heritage, not just our natural heritage, but our culture as well. I visited Emilio quite often when I was a young boy.
Really?
Visited him with family. Yes, we sat on the porch there together. He used to have one of these old-time radios and an old-time piano. And he showed us that he used to cook in the old way. He had one of those pots, and used to cook on the tree stone and those sorts of things. He had a coal pot. So I think up until a good grand age, that's what he did. And then later on, people started taking care of him. Emilio was someone that, he knew a lot of people, but he was not quick to trust people with his property. So people tried to get the property from him. Some people said that they would protect the property. And for some reason or the other, he chose never to give the property to anyone, but to always keep it in his name.
Interesting.
In 2001, 2002, around that period, I think it was 2001, the Emilio Wilson Cultural Historical Park Foundation managed to persuade Emilio to open up part of his property to the public at large. That's the Emilio Wilson Park as we know it right now, which is just a small portion of the Emilio Wilson estate. Now, the Emilio Wilson Cultural Historical Park Foundation got that property in long lease from Emilio for some 30 years with the option to renew. So that long lease went into effect, I believe, in 2001. Okay. And there are a lot of culturally, historically important monuments on that area. And if you think about it, this is the first park that we really have on St. Martin that we as a people can go to and enjoy the rest of the area. Now, it was always the intention of the park, of the people that manage the park, to try to get the rest of the area protected as well. Unfortunately, Emilio passed away, and that never occurred. So in 2005, I was back on the island, and I was working with Nature Foundation, and at that time, we heard that there were plans being submitted to develop the entire Emilio Wilson estate. So that is outside of the park. Outside of the park, okay. To develop that area and to put high-end residences over there. So it would have been a gated community. It's not something where us as local people, unless we are very well-to-do, would be able to live. It was going to be a closed-off community. And we said, you know something, all of this development is not happening in the right way. We need to have a protected area in St. Martin where people can learn about our natural heritage, but also our cultural heritage. We need an open space. This plantation is one of over 40 plantations that we had on the Dutch side of St. Martin, and it's one of the last ones left. Let's protect this area. So there was a renewed effort by environmental organizations, but also historians, to try to protect that area. And we lobbied with government, and we got them to deny the planning permit request to develop that area. And in September, I want to say September 20th of 2005, we managed to get the Island Council at that time to pass Island Council decision saying that, Island Council resolution saying that they were in favor of protecting the entire Emilio Wilson estate, putting it on a monument list, and instructing the Executive Council to look into the possibilities of purchasing the Emilio Wilson estate. So that started in 2005. After that, you had several island resolutions that were passed, and Executive Council besluiten decisions, bestuurscollege besluiten, that said we're going to protect the Emilio Wilson estate. It was actually put on the monument list in 2008.
But the park is already protected.
Well, you know what is protected? The park is in long lease, but who is to say that this long lease will be renewed? Okay. There are no guarantees. Okay. So it's in long lease for, you know, maybe a little over a decade more. But who's to say what will happen after that? The owners, the current owners, can say, hey, we're not interested in leasing it out to you anymore. The lease is hereby canceled or not renewed, not extended. So nothing is really protected. Today, nothing is really protected. It's in long lease, so it's okay for a couple of years, but you never know what is going to happen after that. So we came together, we got it on a monument list, and we've been pushing government since then to zone the property as a protected area and to purchase it from its owners, to purchase it for the people of St. Martin. If you can invest X amount of million in a ring road, in a bridge across the lagoon, why can't you invest some money to protect the heritage of the people? All over the world, let's not just look at the world, but just look at our sister islands. Look at St. Kitts. Look at St. Eustatius.
Let's take little St. Bart's.
All over. Look at the French side. Yeah, all over. Look at Puerto Rico. You know, our people go to Puerto Rico. Some people go to Puerto Rico quite often, might be familiar with the fact that it has a lot of protected areas. Why can all of those islands have protected areas and we need to sell off everything for mass development? Let something belong to the people, where the people can go and air out, where the school kids can go and learn about our cultural heritage and about our natural heritage. So we've been pushing government to zone it and to purchase it. About 2 years ago, I was approached, the environmental organizations were approached by a company called Rainforest Adventures that presented their preliminary plans to us, and basically they wanted our blessing. Now, their plans at that time included blasting a piece of the top of the hill so that they could put facilities such as, I think at that time they were discussing a small restaurant, toilet facilities. They wanted to do rock climbing up there and a bridge in between the rock face over there. And also chairlifts to the top of the hill. What they call tubing as well. So there would be this tube coming down the hill with an inner tube that looks kind of like a car tire, one of those big blown up things with water coming down the hill. And we said, something, this is not what we're looking for the Emilio Wilson estate. This is an amusement park. You want to do that somewhere? Well, we don't feel it's necessary for on St. Martin. But if you want to do it somewhere, do it elsewhere. What we want is a protected area. St. Martin needs a protected area with an educational facility so we can provide education to the public at large about our heritage. We don't need something like this because this is for mass tourism. We need something for ourselves now. We have lost so much to mass tourism. Why can't we have one area protected? So we've been fighting that ever since, trying to get government to purchase it. Quite often, our words fell on deaf ears. Just a couple of months ago, it was publicized that government signed off on the monument permit, which entails that they have received a permit to alter or destroy the monuments that are there, because the entire Emilio Wilson estate is on a monument list. Usually when you have things on the monument, list, it's a structure. It's like a building or a wall. But in this case, the entire Emilio Wilson estate, which includes from, let's say, across the Jose Lake Ballpark, going all the way up to the top of the hill, come down towards where the St. John's estate area starts. So that entire area is on a monument list. They received a permit from government to alter the monument, and they received a building permit for the structures that they plan. Now, the monument permit is very questionable for numerous reasons. When a monument permit request is issued to the minister or the responsible department, that monument permit request has to go to what is called the Monument Council. This is a council that government put together to advise them on these permits. But the Monument Council has been defunct since 2009. People needed to be renamed to the Monument Council. Their term expired, and that never happened.
So that makes that permit invalid.
That makes that permit invalid because the Monument Council wasn't there. They were unable, therefore, to review.
Haven't been followed.
They were unable to review this permit request. The minister went ahead and issued it. If you look at the letter of the law, that monument permit is illegal. It is very questionable. So right now we are fighting the issuing of that monument permit. What should also be said is that we're, in the first week of July, over the past couple of months, you've heard a lot about Emancipation Day. A lot of talk about Emancipation Day.
But before you reach, because I have an idea where you're going with that, let's backtrack a bit. Let's reverse a bit. And you said that a monument permit was issued and also a building permit was issued by government. Now, me using my knowledge with the functioning of government, right? The monument permit had to go through the Minister of Culture, right or wrong?
Yes.
And the building permit had to go through the Minister of Roaming.
Yes.
So then we are talking about the former minister, Dr. Rhoda Arundel, and the former minister, Theo Heiliger.
Indeed.
They would be the ones who issued those permits?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Do you have, are you saying that that's a fact?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Can that be proven?
Can that be proven? Well, it's a fact that those permits came from those ministries. Now, going back to the monument permit, aside from just going to the Monument Council, that monument permit had to be on public review.
Was it?
It was not on public review. It was not even announced in a newspaper. The law says it has to be announced in a newspaper. It has to also be gazetted for it to become valid. And in it being announced in a newspaper, being put on public review, the public at large, people that have something to say about it, can go to the relative ministry, the ministry where it is, the relevant ministry, and to look at the monument permit request and to voice their opinions. So it hasn't been issued, meaning that no one has seen this permit request and no one has seen the permits. Yes, yet they were issued.
You was about to mention, before I stop you, you was about to mention about the whole significance of emancipation.
Well, you know, look, these areas, the estate, the Emilio Wilson estate, is just one of many that we had on St. Martin. But we've lost many of them. The Emilio Wilson estate, as I said just now, is one of the last ones left. Now, that is not to say that the others that are left shouldn't be protected as well, because we've lost so much. But the Emilio Wilson is really the flagship of them and should be really acknowledged as such.
When you say others, can you name one or two more?
Belvedere, part of the Belvedere plantation is still there. That area should be protected as well. There are other buildings, historical buildings in Phillipsburg that should be put on a monument list. So there, you know, we've lost a lot already over the years, but there's still some left, and we should acknowledge and protect those areas.
Would you consider, I would call it a travesty, what is going on with Emilio Wilson Estate, but would you consider it or put it on the same level back then to what went on with Little Bay and the fort, and, you know, wanting to build there and we can't go there and it's corner off, and, you know, the hotel bought it and stuff like that? Would you consider it to be on that same level as that situation was back then?
You know something, Chris, that's an interesting question, and I think it's actually worse than that situation.
Wow.
Why do I think it's worse than that situation? Because at that time, many of us didn't know better. You're talking about something that happened 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You're talking about something that happened in the 70s and 80s that people really started to talk about it. The estate was actually sold to, the fort was actually sold in the 60s, I believe, to Little Bay. And that's before us. And the dawn of environmental awareness and the dawn of awareness about culture and heritage in the Caribbean really wasn't that widespread yet. But it is now. So what's our excuse now?
Right.
So what is going on now is actually even worse than what happened then, because right now we should know better. We should know better. I'd like to go back to what I was saying about the Emilio Wilson estate. I want to make it very clear to the people that are listening. We believe the Emilio Wilson estate should be protected, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our eyes on other areas that should be protected as well. But you have to start somewhere, because people often come up to me and say, Ruben, you're right about the Emilio Wilson estate, but what about all of the other areas? But you need to start somewhere.
Okay.
We've spoken a lot on the island the past couple of months about Emancipation Day, the importance of acknowledging our ancestors and the struggles that they went through. Now, what better way to acknowledge the struggle of our ancestors than to protect the Emilio Wilson estate? Protect it in its entirety. We just had Emancipation Day, and I commend the fact that we had Emancipation Day, because that is a significant step forward. To those that organize it, I commend you. But I didn't go to any of the celebrations.
I believe you, and I had the same reason why.
I did not go because many of these celebrations were at monuments that we just made. They were at roundabouts, where they put many of our ancestors. Why have it at a roundabout? Wantiti Luque was a slave on the Emilio Wilson estate, as it was known then, the Industry and Golden Rock Plantation. Protect the Emilio Wilson estate and have your events there.
But it is so significant to what you're saying, Ruben, because the former minister also gave a speech at the Emilio Wilson for that day on Emancipation. And I stand to be corrected on that.
It was on
because
Sunday.
The little part that I saw, she was there.
Yes, I know she was there, and she's also the one that really pushed for this Emancipation Day. So how can you, on one hand, push for Emancipation Day and then sign the monument permit, allowing these people to develop that area? Now, you know, this company, Rainforest Adventures, is a company that is being pushed by the Carnival Cruise Line. And, you know, Chris, I believe you and I, the rest of us as St. Martin's, should have a vote in who comes on the board of the Florida Caribbean Cruise Ship Association, because they're basically deciding what's happening here on St. Martin. Same thing for Carnival and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. They're dictating via our ministers what happens here. They want to be able to sell more tours on the boats, so St. Martin all of a sudden needs an amusement park. What happened to the entire Island Council who unanimously decided to put that estate on the monument list, to purchase the estate?
Yeah,
what happened to them?
What happened to them?
My question, what happened to them?
Can they be held accountable?
They should be held accountable.
How can the regular man who's concerned, who's listening, who's saying something should be done, what can be done?
We have to realize here on St. Manuel that's something that we don't realize, because too often people come up to me and say, Ruben, how come you're fighting government? So this is our government, we got to support them. No, those people in government are our employees.
Yeah.
They work for us.
Definitely.
Yeah? We put them there for a reason. We have to realize that we put them there and we can tell them what to do. We have to become more vocal, call into programs, write pieces to the newspaper, stand up in front of the government building like these people from the Pelican saga did, and let your voice be heard. People come up to me all the time and say, Ruben, you and Shadira, the rest of y'all doing good work. We got your back. And my question to many of them is, how far back are you? Because for quite often it's just us there. And in just being two voices or a little more than two voices, you don't make as much as an impact. But the people of St. Martin, us, we're too busy surviving. They have us surviving, Chris. Some of us are working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. And politicians, those in power, they know this. They know we're too busy surviving to look around and see what happens. Up to just last year, people came up to me and said, boy, Ruben, I haven't been to Cupacoy in a long time. What happened in Cupacoy? What happened to all those ponds that were there? What are all those tall buildings? People too busy working to even go over there. That's another devastation.
Yeah, and I am saying the same thing to individuals. I jumped in a bus today on my way from work, and I was speaking to the bus driver, and I said, when was the last time you've been down to Simpson Bay? He said, ooh, I can't tell you, because that's not his route. I said, you need to take a drive down there and see what they're doing to the lagoon.
We need to become more aware of what is going on around us. And we need to move away from thinking. We need to constantly develop, and build. People have this mentality that every bit of development, every bit of building that is put up is progress, but that is not the case. If we keep building, destroying all of our wetlands, I said it time and again, St. Martin on the Dutch side, in the 1960s, we had 19 ponds. I heard you mention it yesterday on the program as well.
Right.
We have 5 left now. You destroy all of your wetlands, you destroy all of your hillsides, you destroy all of your old plantations. How are you going to teach the next generation where our culture comes from? How are you going to teach them who we are? When it comes to the economy, why do you think tourists come here? Tourists don't come here to see, well, I wonder what Casino St. Martin built now. No, of course, some tourists want to go to casinos, some want to go to restaurants, some want to enjoy the nightlife, but they want to enjoy our beaches, the aesthetic value of our hillsides, our ponds and lagoons as well. We're destroying all of that. So basically, Chris, is we're slaughtering the goose that lays the golden eggs, and we're killing our own main economic pillar of tourism. We're really destroying what our tourism economy is built on. And it has happened to other islands throughout the world. If you look at your Malta, you look at your Ibiza, Mallorca, some of those islands over there were big family destinations in the 60s, 70s, up to 80s. Now people just go there for weekends because it's so built up. Closer in the Caribbean, you have the same thing. What's going to happen is St. Manuel is going to become a hub. People are going to fly in here because we have a big airport. Then they're going to go down to Dominica. They're going to go to St. Lucia. They're going to go to St. Kitts. It's already happening to a certain extent that you see people going to St. Barts and Anguilla. But it's going to become more and more prevalent. They're going to go to countries
that wouldn't be good for the tourism product.
That wouldn't be good for the tourism product. The money won't stay here. So we need to really have a look at what we're doing and protect some of our areas. Look at the bridge across the Simpson Bay Lagoon. This is something that I warned about since 2008. Warned about this bridge across the lagoon since 2000. That brought tears to my eyes, huh? It's a disaster.
You can't find words to explain. So you simply have to tell people, go and look at it for yourself. It's
an environmental disaster. But it's not the first one that I've seen. You know, when I came back home, the first big environmental disaster that I remember when I came back home was the destruction of Dawn Beach Pond.
West End.
Yes, where West End is.
I remember that. And
the destruction of Dawn Beach.
Ran out into the sea. I remember that.
Cut off all the mangroves. They filled it in. They pumped the pond out into the sea, and they built this monstrosity of a building. Now, let me make it very clear. As an environmentalist and someone, I'm not against development, but development has to happen in a sustainable manner. There needs to be a balance between your natural, your cultural heritage, and your rate of development. And that's not on St. Martin, that's not the case.
But seeing that you mentioned that, and it's only fair for us here on the program, I believe that the environmentalist group, you guys also have a plan for Emilio Wilson in terms of development, also similar to what Rainforest. Now, correct me, I could be wrong, but I believe I heard you one time on another program saying, look, listen, we have an alternative. We have something that is pretty interesting. Elaborate a bit on that.
Well, Chris, I have to correct you there, because what we want to do with the estate is nothing at all like what Rainforest Adventures
So when you hear Mr. Brookson saying, but these guys want to do the same thing, what we have planned?
No, nothing like that. They want to have these major tourism buses coming there, have between 800 and 1,200 tourists flying up and down the hill every 5 minutes. The ecological impact of that is tremendous. You're going to chase away all your bats. You're going to chase away all of your birds. The people that live over there in the Wyatt Gap, or the people that live in St. John's, they're going to have to deal with these noisy tourists all the time. That's not what we want. We want Emilio Wilson Estate to be protected, which is to say, not for it to just remain green and nobody can go there. People always think, oh, the environmentalists want to protect it so it's a green patch and we can't touch it. No. We want to have a visitor center. We want to have paths going up the hill that people can hike, people can walk, bird watching huts. We need to have a museum dedicated to the Emilio Wilson Estate and the artifacts found there and in other plantations as well. There needs to be, like I said, an education center where people can learn not just about the Emilio Wilson Estate, but also about other estates on San Juan, about our heritage in general. And the focus needs to be on that. Now, what Mr. Brooks and what Rainforest Adventures are proposing is an amusement park with a lot of joy, a lot of people shouting and screaming all over the place, and very little focus on our natural and cultural heritage.
I heard the gentleman with Mr. Brooks talking about protecting the culture, protecting the heritage of Emilio Wilson. They're going to focus on it. They're going to do this and they're going to do that.
They're
and
very
Mr.
good
Brookson
salespeople.
Said, what's the difference between what we want to do and what these guys want to do?
Well, what we want to do is primarily for the people of St. Martin. And yes, visitors that come to the island, they can make use of it and enjoy it as well. It's for them as well. But it's primarily for the people of St. Martin. It's our heritage, something for us to be proud of. What they want to do is primarily for the cruise ship tourists. That's a big difference.
Nah.
That's a big difference. Yeah? Do you see our people being able to go there all the time and being able to afford the chairlifts to go up and down this hill?
No.
You see that?
No. But I remember calling on that program also.
I know exactly what you're talking
and
about.
letting him know that it's crazy for him to think that such a thing can work, given the level and the flow of traffic in this area. And his response to me was, look at Latry Farm.
Yes, but this is nothing compared to Latry Farm. Not Latry Farm. It's not like Latry Farm. This is Latry Farm, to put it bluntly, Chris, on steroids. This is Latry Farm on steroids. So an over-exaggeration of Latry Farm with a very heavy commercial aspect. Now, we're speaking about Rainforest Adventures and Mr. Brookson a little bit here and their plans. But I don't want to focus on them because the issue at hand is government.
Right.
Government made the commitment to protect them, protect the Emilio Wilson Estate, to protect the area. Government made that commitment, put it on a monument list, repeatedly said to the people, we're looking into purchasing it. Publicly made that statement. So we shouldn't even need to worry about Rainforest Adventures or any other developer. Government needs to put their money where their mouth is. Purchase the Emilio Wilson Estate, protect it for future generations of St. Martiners and visitors.
Fine. Fair enough, Ruben. Come 2014, whatever happened, they didn't manage to get the property developed as yet. Christopher get into office. What's the monetary value of Emilio Wilson in terms of figures? What are they asking for? What's the worth? What's the value in terms of money? Because now you're going to come and propose and say, Christopher, we talked, you was on the program, I made a pledge to protect Emilio Wilson, so now put your money where your mouth is. And I'm saying, but you guys want 100 million, 200 million. I mean, It's gonna dig the country into a hole.
You know, Christopher, I cannot sit here and tell you how much the Emilio Wilson estate costs. That's something you have to ask the owners of the Emilio Wilson
Right.
estate. I do not speak for them. I do not speak for them. But what I will say is something that I said earlier. Think about it. If you can spend money on the bridge and you can spend money on the ring road, you can spend money on protecting our natural and cultural heritage.
Okay.
Yeah?
But
I cannot tell you how much the Emilio Wilson estate costs. What I can tell you is that protected areas all over the world have been proven to be economically viable. So if you protect and purchase the Emilio Wilson estate, you establish it as a protected area, of course you will get visitors. Of course, after a while, the area will be able to pay for itself, but it's going to take a while.
where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? What's next? I mean, what's the plan of approach? What do you see in the next 4 months, in the next 6 months, in the next year?
If the people of St. Martin do not wake up...
Let me stop you there.
Mhm.
No, wrong question. Tomorrow morning, bulldozers are at Emilio Wilson Estate and they're starting to dig. What's next?
Well, Chris, then on that day is when you and I are going to see how good of a friend you are. Because my question to you then, will you come and look me up at the police station?
No, I will be there next with you.
Okay, good. Because I will be there standing up in front of that bulldozer and I will sit on it. I will be there, most definitely. And I've said that before. I will be there sitting on that bulldozer, tying myself to it. I guaranteed I will be there. I'll sit down in front of it. Now, so I will definitely be there. Yeah. I want to say that, you know, this is nothing new. It's been going on for a while. We've been fighting this environmental battle, but people need to become more vocal, Chris. Nothing is going to change on St. Martin until people realize that we are our own government and we need to hold these politicians accountable. Every last one of them. Previous government, current government, future government, hold them accountable for their actions.
Let me throw this question at you, Ruben. Seeing that the former Minister of Culture did what she did in terms of signing the monument permit and stuff, can it be reversed? Can it be put on a halt? Can it be looked into? Can it stop? Because you're saying that it's not kosher. You're saying that something is not right in terms of the legality of this permit. Have you spoken to the now Minister of Culture concerning this?
We have not spoken to the current Minister of Culture, but we have spoken to the Vice Prime Minister. We have handed letters to the current Minister of Culture, to the Vice Prime Minister as well, the Deputy Prime Minister, I should say. We've handed over information, we've spoken to him, and we've said, listen, this permit is definitely questionable, and it is challengeable. You can do something about it. But the question, Chris, is there political will to do something about it? Is there the political will to do something about it?
Then we need to make them want to have.
Exactly. That's why I said earlier, we're our government. We need to indicate that we want that area protected. Now, the Emilio Wilson Estate is not on a monument list because the environmental organizations pushed for it to be, you know, not just because of that. The Emilio Wilson Estate is on a monument list because people wrote into the newspaper, people called your television programs, people called the radio programs and said, hey, protect the Emilio Wilson Estate. Do something for us for a change. That's why government was pushed into passing that that island resolution in 2005. Because of the people made that change. And people need to realize their power.
I want to ask my engineer Bit if he can do a little research and put up some pictures or whatever he have of the Emilio Wilson Park, the Emilio Wilson Estate, so people can get a large a view of what we are talking about. But whenever we mention the name Emilio Wilson, we all think on the small little area with the little tiki huts and the little stuff, and we all see that as it. But give us, because you mentioned from across from Jose Lake Ballpark, gone up to the old house, but give us a diagram in terms of the area, the vastness, the largeness of the area, up to Mount Scenery, come all the way down. What is the actual size of Emilio Wilson?
Well, the actual size of the Emilio Wilson Estate is a little over 430,000 square meters, right? And the area that we're referring to, the Emilio Wilson Cultural Historical Park, is just, I think, about some 90,000 square meters, somewhere around there. So the actual Emilio Wilson estate is much and much bigger than the park alone. But if you look at an island such as Aruba, if you look at Curaçao and Bonaire, all of those islands have protected areas.
Right.
Aruba has Parque Arecook.
Arecook,
You know, Parque Arecook is 34 square kilometers.
That's it?
That's huge. 34 square kilometers. That's almost bigger than the Dutch side of St. Martin.
Yeah.
That's almost bigger than the Dutch side of St. Martin. How come we can't have a protected area? This little area of 400,000 square meters we're trying to get protected. You mean to say we can't do
I
that?
had the figures mixed up.
You mean to say we can't protect that little area? So it's a matter of political will and reminding our politicians of their promises. And to be quite honest with you, Chris, with this new government that is there, I have seen some steps being taken into the right direction when it comes to the Emilio Wilson estate.
But I don't think it's enough.
They have to work harder and be more forthcoming with the public about the steps that they are taking.
Ruben, I am feeling a bit disappointed because I want to like my former Minister of Culture because of the relationship, because I know the individual personally. I mean, I wouldn't say that you have an obligation, right? But don't you think it will be good, just for clarity's sake, just for you in terms of wanting to know, asking her why did she do that?
I think I think Rhoda owes the people of St. Martin an explanation. Owes the people of St. Martin an explanation. Why did you sign off on that permit? Why? I don't understand it. You're selling off a piece of our heritage. You're selling off a piece of our heritage.
Ruben, how can I get my hands on those 2 permits?
Well, what we did this past week, actually last week, is we filed official requests via the LOP, the Landsverordening en Openbaarheid van Bestuur, which basically allows the public to request these decisions that government makes. And it gives government 3 weeks to issue you these documents. The possibility for them is to extend the period in between your request and the granting of your request by another 3 weeks. So the maximum that it can take is 6 weeks. We've requested these documents, and when we do have these documents officially, we will have a look at them and we will do as much as we can to make sure that matters are rectified.
You know, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm a bit conflicted right now because I'm thinking about the next generation. I'm thinking about school children. I'm thinking about my daughters, my friend, and their sons, their children. You know, what can we say, or what should we say if this property is not bought and protected? What should we say to our children when they ask, but what is this here, Daddy? Or what is this here, Mommy? And what did you do? I mean, what is it we will be able to say?
Christopher, you need to realize that culture is a lot like language. It's not something that you're born with. The language that you learn is what you hear your parents speaking, is what you have around you. If you don't have your culture around you, you're not going to learn anything about your culture. The Emilio Wilson Estate is part of our heritage, part of our natural and cultural heritage. You know, when we were growing up, there were slave walls all over the place. You run through the hills, you run into a slave wall, even in the lower lying areas. More so for our parents before us. There are very few of them left. In the Emilio Wilson Estate, you have some pristine ones. You want to show your kids what a slave wall is, what the ancestors, our ancestors went through in a book, or you want to take them to the Emilio Wilson Estate and say, you see those rocks over there? Our ancestors went all the way up the hills with these rocks and their backs, broke their backs over here to put these walls down. That's our heritage. That is what our people went through. That is what they survived. That is what made us who we are today. It shouldn't be knocked down. One of the parliamentarians, Christopher, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do. April of this year,
I know what you're talking
we had
about. He
3
said it
motions.
reminds him of slavery.
Exactly. We had 3 motions in front of Parliament. One was to protect the Emilio Wilson estate.
The Mullet Bay Pond.
The other one was to protect Mullet Bay Pond. Now, as I said, this is one of 5 of the 19 ponds.
I have it in the back of my head because I'm coming to that with you.
And the other one was to ban plastic bags. Now, when it was on the floor, there was a whole big debate. Parliamentarians said, well, there are other protected areas throughout the world that have these sorts of facilities to keep them economically viable. You cannot compare St. Martin to bigger countries that have multiple protected areas because we have none.
And other industries to take care of them.
Right. One of the parliamentarians said, we cannot protect, I don't want to protect the Emilio Wilson estate because that reminds me of slavery. Get rid of that. If you forget about slavery, how are you going to prevent these sorts of things from happening again? What if people were supposed to forget about World War II? How are you going to prevent it from happening again? You have to learn from previous mistakes. You have to be proud of where you come from.
Let me throw this out at you because I want to get, because you mentioned there's 5 ponds left. I only know the Fresh Pond and the Salt Pond and the Mullet Bay Pond. Those are the only ponds that I know.
You know more, you know. You know more. Drive from the hospital, go towards Bel Air.
Yes. So that's 4.
That's 4.
What's the 5th?
Go over the Guana Bay Hill and look all the way to your left. Red Pond.
Okay, Red Pond, yeah. But Aquarius is
well, Aquarius, nothing is going on over there. You know, I mean, they're auctioning off that property now, but
yeah.
that pond should be protected as well.
Yeah,
that pond should be protected.
Absolutely correct. Ruben, Christopher, I'm taking my engineer because he decided that yes, we should. My friend who I had down at the Causeway area taking pictures, he rounded up 10 and 15 of his friends. The engineer round up 10 and 15 of his friends, and I bring 10 and 15 of my friends, and we are knocking on your door tomorrow, and we are saying we are ready to do something about Emilio Wilson estate. What are your suggestions? What would you tell us? Because we are there and we are ready, and we are not moving. If we have to stay, we are staying. If we have to sit down in the road, we are sitting down. What would you tell that group? What would you say to them? Let's say you got 15, 20 students decide, look, listen, I'm not telling my parents, we're not saying nothing. We want to protect this area. What would Ruben Thompson say to that group?
First of all, I would commend that group for coming together because it takes a lot of courage to do these sorts of things. We have done something like this before. If you remember, we got the St. Dominic school kids at that time to sit in on an island council meeting. They sat in an island council meeting with all sorts of billboards and placards, and they got all sorts of attention, and that is what got the Emilio Wilson estate on the monument list. My advice to them would be to sit in on a parliamentary meeting. Go over there, have the media see your face, have everybody, have the parliamentarians see your face, voice your opinion. There's a public tribune, make use of it in a respectful manner, of course, because you don't want to give them any sort of excuse to arrest you. But make use of it, voice your opinion. If that doesn't work, go to the site of these areas where these developments are proposed because you listed several. Stand up there, voice your opinion, let yourself be heard.
Would you say that that should be the same action taken for the Causeway? Because
like I said,
that is full steam ahead.
For several developments on the island, yes, that should
that is full steam ahead. And like
let your voice be heard, be more vocal. Be more vocal. Now, I'm not saying people should go and do things that are going to get them arrested. I'm not giving anyone any sorts of instructions to do those sorts of things, but be more vocal. Let your voice be heard. Go out there, protest. Protest. Learn from our brothers and sisters on the French side, because if something goes wrong over there, they protest, they let their voice be heard. Why can't we do the same thing on the Dutch side? Learn from the people by Pelican. The people by Pelican went to the Parliament building and let their voice be heard. Why can't we do the same thing? I remember the actions that we used to have on St. Martin in the 80s and 90s, people standing up in front of the government building, blocking the road and all of those sorts of things.
The frontiers. When Port-au-Plaisance wanted to move the frontier and move the road to the back and get a Gulf, there was a mass protest and march for that road. I mean, it's similar. It's the same thing.
Well, you know, that's what I'm saying, Chris. People need to be more vocal and more involved. Don't just expect, oh, Chris is going to address the issue or Ruben is going to address the issue. Because Chris and Ruben, Shadira, that's all. They can only do so much. They're one person. People need to come together and be more active, be more involved. If people are really against the causeway, let your voice be heard. Because no matter how the causeway is financed, indirectly, the taxpayers are going to pay for it somewhere down the line. No matter how they say, oh, it's being done via bonds, or it's being externally financed. At the end of the day, the taxpayers are going to suffer and have to pay for this somehow. Our roads that we have, sorry, Chris, but once I start, I can't stop.
Go ahead.
Once, look at our roads in St. Martin. I drive through the different neighborhoods all the time. I drive through Dutch Quarter, up into Nazareth, the Garden of Eden, Bethlehem. Yeah, I drive through those areas to have a look. Yeah. I drive through St. Peter's.
I'm feeling out of place because I don't do that.
No, I drive around there a couple of, last year, the year before, I took a newspaper journalist with me through those areas. He said, Lord Ruben, I didn't even know these areas were here. Locked the car doors and all because, he didn't know where we were. But I go through those areas. I feel at home in those areas. I went to school with a lot of my friends live in those areas. So I drive through those areas. I drive through St. Peter's up to the top of the hill.
And people recognize who you are.
A lot of people recognize who I am. And we look at the areas and we say, look at the infrastructure here. I'm not just talking about the roads, which are bad enough.
The homes,
the homes, but also the sewage. If you drive through St. Peter's right now, and I'm singling out St. Peter's because I partially grew up there. And just last week I was driving through the different neighborhoods. Before the program started, we were talking about that neighborhood. Almost every road has a handful of car wrecks on it right now. And people can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I drove through one of the streets just yesterday. And I was surprised. I said, but what is going on here? I couldn't move. There was
car wrecks all over the place. Now,
and
what I'm saying in that is, A, we as a people need to take more pride in our neighborhoods and not leave these cars in front of our houses, dispose of them in a proper manner. But also, government needs to have projects to pick up these cars so it works broadways.
There were a project.
There was, but why are these projects?
Paul Moy started up.
Well, Paul Moy has been gone for a while. Why are these projects not continued? Why is the sewage issue in all the neighborhoods needs to be addressed? Now, I'm not saying it's not happening, but it's happening too slowly. They're working on a second phase of this Ebenezer pipeline that is going down to the ATLH Road right now. But inside the different neighborhoods, look, they did the St. Peter's beautification, but they just did that main road. If you're going to, you can be on the main road might look nice. You take an alley, it's full of sewage all over the place. People on that main road have problems with sewage running into their garden, into their yard, and the drainage system on this so-called beautification project does not work. It's clogged up. Doc, Mr. Lake, Neville Lake, he calls me all the time. He says, Ruben, this is clogged up. Now, I can call Public Works and tell them, listen, you all need to do something about it. But I'm not in government. I'm not Public Works. I don't have the manpower to go there and fix it. It's government's task to do these sorts of things. My point is, Chris, we have all of these infrastructural problems in the different neighborhoods, in what you would want to call the heart of St. Martin, the core of St. Martin. Why is there no money to fix all of these infrastructural projects? Fix all of them, but there is money for Ring Road. But there is money for a bridge across the lagoon, a causeway. It's a matter of setting priorities. And government is not setting the right priorities, and we as a people are failing because we're not pushing them to set those right priorities.
Ruben, let me switch gears a bit and talk about the Ring Road, because this is one project that I simply don't understand at all. Because I believe when it first came out in the report, they talked about a road to just swoop around so you can get to the Milleridge, Sucker Garden, Dutch Quarter areas quickly. And then later on, now you start to hear about land being given out so that people can build this and build that. I think that was misleading. Now, I don't know what what's the name of the project?
The Almere
plan project, talks about concerning this road. But when I look at it today, when I was there, now they have another track going across to tell them where they cut off part of the pond. When I look up above this, they have some big sets of, what is going on? What is really happening with this thing, if I should use that word.
You know, the Ring Road is a project that, again, just like the bridge
disaster.
across the lagoon, we alerted the public about that project a long time before it happened. We were on the television programs, we were in the newspaper, we were on the radio programs, talking about this Ring Road project, letting the people know that this project is not necessary. You live on an island of 16 square miles. You can build all the roads you want, Chris, but if you don't do something about the massive influx of cars that we have on St. Martin, if you don't do something about our public transportation issues here on St. Martin, you can build all the roads that you want, but in a couple of years, we're going to be stuck in traffic on those roads as well. You know the only thing that bridge across the causeway is going to do for us? 5 years from now, you and I are going to be stuck in traffic back to back, and I'm going to tell you, Chris, I hope you bring your fishing pole, because we can stand up on the bridge and we can fish into the Simpson Bay Lagoon, if they still have fish there at that time.
If they still have fish
If they still have fish. Because we're going to be stuck in traffic on that bridge, and you're going to have people stuck in traffic on land. That's what's going to happen with the influx of cars on St. Martin. All of these bridges, all of these infrastructural projects, Chris, is just about pushing money around.
But quickly, Ruben, what's the real idea behind the so-called Ring Road? Is it to give out land? Is it for, what is it really? Because I doubt people really know.
The only ones that could really answer that question is those people that commissioned that project there. But I can tell you one thing, it is not about resolving the traffic situation. I don't know what the intentions are, but it is not about resolving the traffic situation, because it will not resolve the traffic situation on St. Martin.
What have it done to the pond?
What it's done to the pond.
I mean, do we still have that basket or that basin that can hold the volume? Because I'm not a rocket scientist, okay? I'm not an engineer, but I see bigger and larger pipes going in. And I'm saying to myself, sand that is there now is clogging up, is blocking something, so they need bigger pipes. Well, I mean, I don't know.
The reason that they need these extra pumps and these extra pipes is because they've diminished the water catchment capacity of the pond. They've diminished it. So you need more pumps to pump out the rainwater that comes into that area.
Are you an engineer?
I'm an environmental engineer, yes.
Okay, good. Because we had the head of new project called Rowan saying that the Ring Road saved Phillipsburg from flooding.
I saw that. That was in October after we had all those rains a couple of years ago.
Here we have a guy that went to all the brightest of schools. He's head of new projects, and that was his statement.
Well, you know, some people just say what their political bosses, don't want to use the word masters, but some people just say what their political
but this is
bosses.
SxM Talk, so you can say it here.
Well,
the
some
masters.
people just say what the political masters tell them to say. Come on, Chris, think about it. Take 3 cups. Take 3 cups, all of them the same size, exact same size, right? Use one to fill up the others with water. Okay. Take 3 cups. One of those 3 cups you fill with sand. And you take that the 3rd cup, and you fill the one that doesn't have any sand with it with as much water as it can. And you try to take that cup that you fill with that water, and you pour it into the 3rd cup with the sand. What's going to happen?
It's going to overflow one day.
It's going to overflow. It's not going to hold as much water as that cup did. The same thing with the Ring Road. The same thing with the Great Salt Pond. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's the same idea. That's why you need these extra pumps there now and these extra pipes to pump out all of that water, because the amount of sand that has been dumped there has diminished the water carrying capacity.
Ruben, we have about 5 minutes, 4 minutes left on the program. Normally, I would take that time and, talk to the people and let them know that, listen, we got to do something. Well, I'm going to give it to you because I see you coming back here and I see us doing something, because something needs to be done. It's easy for us to talk, okay? But it's time for an action plan. It's time for an action plan, because you said permits have been issued, so that means they have the rights now to start the development. So take the last couple of minutes, Ruben, and address the people in terms of listen.
What I'd like to say, Chris, is that St. Martin is still very much at the dawn of environmental awareness. Environmental awareness has just started here, if you were to compare it to Europe, to other countries throughout the world. But when you live on such a small island and you lose your natural and cultural heritage, you lose certain aspects of it, you feel that impact a lot quicker than in these big countries. If you look at where the GEB power plant is built, that used to be a pond. If you look at the Little Bay Hotel, that used to be a pond.
Yeah.
We have pictures of all of these areas as ponds. If you look at where Chesterfield's restaurant is, that used to be a small pond. The Sundial School is built on another pond. So there were ponds all over. If you look at Maho Hotel, that is built on a pond there as well. That area used to be called the Millennium Intertidal Area. If you look at the airport, that is the Flamingo Pond. If you go over by Sunset and you look towards the gate over there, you still see remnants of a pond there.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot of our ponds. Dawn Beach, you lost a pond. If you go over to Cupacoy and you look where the Cupacoy Yacht Club is, some people would say 2, other people would say that we had 3 ponds there. Personally, I think it's 3 because sandbanks used to separate them most of the time. Guana Bay, you go over the hill by Guana Bay, there used to be a well there and a wetland, sometimes used to be like a pond. You see there that they have villas built now. We've lost so much of our ponds, so much of our wetlands in the name of development. We need to protect these areas, Chris. The Great Salt Pond is the cradle, the foundation of St. Martin society. That's why St. Martin was settled in the 1630s. Our ancestors worked, they slaved there. They worked there during slavery and after slavery. That pond is who made us, that pond is what made us who we are as a people. Those rock walls in there didn't just appear there. The rocks didn't grow there. Our ancestors put them there. We should be proud of the work they put in there. We should be proud of that. And we need to protect it, not destroy it. We need to protect it. The same thing goes for our hillsides, the hilltops. Protect those areas for future generations. And in protecting those areas for future generations, you're protecting yourself. You're safeguarding your economy because your economy is built on these areas. We don't need all of these major projects. People say, oh, we need to build a bridge because it is job creation. Do something about the infrastructure in the neighborhoods. You could put some of the boys there that are looking for work that you and I went to school with that don't have a job. Train them.
The minister said he's going to create jobs for local contractors.
He's going to train. And local contractors don't have any work to do in the neighborhoods. They don't have any work to do in the neighborhoods. Definitely. Look at all the different neighborhoods. Yes, there's work being done on the main roads, but look at the side streets where the garbage trucks don't come. There's a lot of work to be done there. Yeah? If you look at this bridge is going to be finished in 2-3 years maximum. But to put sewage infrastructure in all of the neighborhoods, that's a long-term job. Yeah. And that's going to take easily a decade.
Interquin was going to take about 10 years to complete that. Yeah.
Easily a decade. Now that is creating jobs, long-term jobs. Do something about that. If you don't do something about the influx of cars on St. Martin, fix your public transportation issue. Fix that. Then we're going to be stuck in traffic again in the next couple of years. Then what's next? We need to build tunnels. And this is not just Reuben Thompson or the environmentalists saying this, but government hired external consultants to make what is called the carrying capacity study, to make what is called a tourism master plan, that put this sort of advice in there. So we're losing our cultural heritage here on St. Martin. We're losing our natural heritage, and in doing so, people are losing their identity.
Ruben, why don't you postulate yourself on a list, get elected, and then do what needs to be done in terms of getting the job done? Because there is where the power lies.
You know, Chris, I've been back home now since 2003, 2004, as I said. And I've been doing this work for quite some time, since I got home. That makes it, 8 years. And in the beginning, I believed, listen, you can push for change from the outside. But now, yes, I do believe you have to get on the inside. At the same time, I'm hoping that our people start to vote based on the issues. Based on the issues. Our people are still, many of our people, Chris, are still not making that connection between who you vote for and what happens in the next 4 years.
And what they do in their project and their profile.
They're not holding people that they vote for accountable. We need to stop thinking about, hey, It's election time. I wonder what Johnny could do for me now. And worry about what Johnny Peter Paul will do for us as a society within the next 4 years. That's what we have to worry about. We need to stop thinking just about ourselves and thinking about, hey, what can I get now? Yeah? But if I go out and I buy you a fish for your vote, you can eat tonight. But if I teach you to fish, you may be able to eat for the rest of your life. And that's not what's happening here on St. Martin.
Mr. Thompson, I want to thank you very much for being on the program.
Chris, it has definitely been a pleasure. And, once I get started, I can't stop.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of issues that still need to be discussed. And when it comes to the Emilio Wilson Estate, people will wake up and realize that your voice needs to be heard. It's not a lost case because they got their permits. They can have their permits all they want. If government makes an offer, they can purchase the area. And thanks for having me, Chris.
Sure.
Good night to the viewers, and have a good weekend, but also think about what was discussed here.
I couldn't have said it any better. But this is serious. Serious. Here you have young people begging you, pleading with you, asking you, help us, help them protect the beauty of St. Martin for the next generation. Let it not fall on deaf ears. Let it not be idle talk. We're going to be back on this program because tonight is our last program. We're going to be taking a short break and we'll be back. And I know I'm going to get Ruben Thompson to come back here to give us an update. However, we will be calling on the general public for us to do something about the environmental disasters that is happening right now in St. Martin. St. Martin people, take care of yourself. God bless each and one of you. Goodbye.